Rachna, for sharing that. Any last questions?
My comment
go
was,
ahead.
Yeah, my name is Kalpa Shah. I'm with Schneider. And my comment was on what Aparna stated about the work from home and such policies that are coming from the top but not being conveyed by the managers or not believing or agreeing with that. And I think that's primarily because they are used to the traditional method of having people work under them, in front of them, staying away is kind of their insecurity of not doing their job. So I think that it may help to learn and to actually train these managers on and introduce them to best practices that good managers who promote work from home policies, what they follow. And some training is probably required for the managers in order for this to succeed.
Completely agree with you. And I think it goes a little bit beyond training as well. Because when you train and try and give best practice examples, especially for companies like ours, which are essentially manufacturing sales kind of companies as opposed to software and stuff. So you give examples from Dell or Amazon, but then those are, software companies. They can do anything. It's like it's a different breed of people that work there. So it's really hard for us. So we constantly keep looking for best practices within similar sectors. I think going a little bit beyond the workforce, and I'm sorry to kind of deviate a little bit, but I think as parents or potential parents, if we want to make a real change in terms of diversity and how women are perceived or how we perceive work, it's really important how we are bringing up our own kids and what's the kind of messaging we are giving there. And your example of pride in the workplace is bang on. The moment we pass that on to the next generation is when we'll see a change. So you won't have another Madeleine Albright coming and saying, 50 years later that it's the same issues we're dealing with. So passing that on and bringing up people for whom it's a given. Equality is given, diversity is a given. That is really key.
And besides for even pride in the workforce, the way we're bringing up our sons and our daughters, right? When we are bringing up our daughters without holding them back for any sorts of gender-based stereotypes, and the way we're bringing up our sons too, for them to realize that it's normal for my father and my mother to work. Then that's how when they grow up, they'll feel it's normal for my wife to work too. And it's normal to have female colleagues in the workforce.
Aparna, what you just said actually reminded me of Mr. Modi's speech last year, Independence Day. So he said, and he's big on the girl child, right? He has a project on it. So what he said was that his advice to parents is that why do you always ask a girl when she's coming back and asking her what time or where are you coming from? Please start questioning your boys. What time are you going to get home and where will you be? So very pertinent point that Aparna mentioned. So I think yes, change has to start from there, and we have to ensure that we give the right messaging to our children in this quarter.
Yeah, I would like to touch upon the point which Niharika mentioned in the beginning of the discussion, that the organization should also need to look at having policies or facilities or processes to engage the women when they're on leave. So say for example, this question is basically to Monica. So when women go on leave, say for example 1 year or 2 years, when they come back to work, the kind of role they look at, so there can be two kind of issues which they will face. One is flexibility in flexibility option like working from home or maybe part-time. This is something that most of the organizations are working on, and we get to see a lot of work-life balancing policies coming up. The second issue is the women associate don't get the right role because there was a break in her career, or especially when technology-driven company like IBM kind of companies, when the associate is not technically sound, or maybe a lot of upskilling is needed, the role she might get would not be really, at par with her aspiration, or maybe at par with her kind of experience with a male associate would be. So how should we handle it? See, there could be two perspectives. From the women's side, she can look at, improving her skills throughout this period. From the organization perspective, can we do something about it? Can we help the women associate come back to track sooner the better, or can we do something on her reskilling, upskilling throughout the time when she is off from the career track?
I think it's an important point that I think some organizations have started to look at. So let me share divide your question two parts. I think it's important when women are planning to come back to work to be very flexible in their mindset. And when I say mindset, it is sometimes about, when you come back, there's already a little bit dip in confidence in terms of I've been out for 6 months, year, 3 years, I don't know what role I'm going to get, and am I really good enough or as good as I was early? So one part of it is you have to take out self-doubt completely. You can't be in self-doubt, number one. Number two, when I say flexibility of mind, I really mean that in those 6 months or 1 year or 3 years or 10 years, organization and the industry may have changed drastically, right? So what did you as an individual, when you were off, or you were off on maternity leave or leave of absence or extended leave, what did you do yourself to skill yourselves up? Did you really keep in touch with the organization to say, this is where my organization is going, and I'm hopeful that I will be able to find a job there? Because when you come back, it's dependent on the kind of open positions that you have. That's second part. The third part is looking at, I don't have the skills, but showing an attitude to your hiring manager to say that I'm willing to learn. Right? I bring in a certain level of base foundational skills. If you put this in front of me, I'm willing to learn. So I'll give my example. When I took maternity leave, I was a technical person. When I came back, my manager recommended, Monica, I think you should be ready to go to a manager slot. And I was like, maybe managers, all they do is look at their mails and respond to it. So there's not a lot of respect in my minds based on what managers did. And I was really toying with that idea. I had already put it back 2 years, and said, I don't want to do that. Maybe I just want to be technical. But I said, let me experiment with it. And then there were two options that really came on the table when I went to the resource deployment manager. And I said, Monica, there are two options. One is your comfort zone, which is software, which is what the world that I came from, Java, J2E, middleware, all that world. And it was something that I thought I could sit and do in my sleep, much easier to handle coming back from maternity leave, but being a first-line manager. The second was a challenging role, coming to systems, learning hardware, having no idea about operating systems and what it does. And that's when I reached out to a lot of my informal mentors. Didn't have really formal mentors, reached out to a lot of my informal mentors. And what they advised me was, Monica, go for the challenging opportunity. So I took up a systems role, having never been a systems developer, doing a first-line manager role. I went to the hiring manager and I said, I have no idea about systems, but I'm willing to learn. I need you to help me give a peer mentor or a reverse mentoring, right? The team that I manage, I picked up 3 mentors from there. I worked hard, went and looked at all the books, understood how operating system, file system, networking services are done, went and asked tons of silly, dumb questions and told them, please bear with me for 6 months, but if I learn it, I'll be fine. If I don't, I'll come back, right? So part of it was that. The second was, I said, I don't think I'll be good if I do this, development role. Why don't I start at the lower end of the curve and be a test manager? So I said, are you willing if I go and swap my role with the development manager? And my hiring manager said, are you sure you want to not do development because everybody wants to be a development manager? I said, no, if I sign up to be a development manager, I'll surely fail. So let me start at the bottom of the curve and be test manager. So I think what I'm trying to tell you is, if you're willing to learn, if the organization believes that you're willing to put your foot forward, put your performance on the table, you make a genuine effort to learn, there's no reason any organization will say no to it. Because remember, especially for technology companies, technology changes every second, every minute. And you have to continuously learn. And I don't think people will let you go or leave a resource or an asset that they have spent so much of time, effort, training, hiring, recruiting, being loyal to the system to go away. So if you're willing to put that step forward, I can challenge you, there will be no organization that will say no to you.
I have one question. This is not in particular to gender, but diversity and inclusion as a whole. I just want to know, what are the companies doing? We as human beings, all of us face unconscious bias. And that could be not only to gender, it could be anything. It could be to ability, it could be nationality, it could be the language. Are companies doing anything in that space to train people on knowing their unconscious bias and keeping it aside while at work so you can build inclusion at the lowest level of the organization possible? Pano?
Yeah, so this is something we are actually starting this year. We realized that while we have done some good work on gender diversity in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, and things are kind of moving along, this piece on unconscious bias it definitely exists. So we are looking at working with partners and getting people trained within the organization on this piece, and running extensive workshops. The first piece is to make people aware that something like this exists, right? we unconsciously say things which are hugely biased, but we don't even realize, what it is we are doing. So you'll have a group of people who speak a similar language getting into a group and, having a business discussion in that language, and that one person is, one or two people are lost. So how do you avoid those kind of things? It only comes from deep education. And we know it's a long journey. We are just taking baby steps into this, so I'll keep you posted on how it goes.
I can just add a couple data points. IBM being an extremely global company operating across many countries, different time zones, there are specific programs that we take our employees through to make sure that those subtle biases don't creep up into the system. Second, every time an IBMer tries to visit a different country, it's mandated for them to go across and look at all the etiquettes, the mannerisms, the biases that they don't want to be subjected to. So there are country-wise data sheets that are available to you that you can go and look at to say, how do you conduct yourself in a particular geography. So I think those are very important things. And I would also like to say it's very important for a company like IBM or transnational companies, because you work in a very globally integrated manner nowadays, right? You're working 24/7, having conference calls, you're really a borderless company, right? You don't recognize countries or where people are really sitting, what language they're talking, as long as you're able to understand what they're saying. So it's very, very important that you are viewed as one single entity, a simple golden thread that's, intertwining you all across, and that comes from culture, that comes from training, just like Aparna mentioned. It's very, very important to do it earlier, if especially you want to have a global footprint across.
I'll just like to add on from Schneider perspective. So we are also doing a lot of workshops and training on gender sensitization. But that's something that we're doing in conjunction to inclusion and diversity as a broader theme. Because also we have to understand that if you just approach the managers on gender sensitization, how much mind share are you also going to get from there? So, and when we talk about diversity and inclusion, it's a much broader agenda, and gender is just an element for it. So therefore, we are actually approaching it holistically. Now, if I have to just talk about how we spread, in India, we have offices across India. So for us, diversity is also diversity of thought, of religion, and you have people from north, west, south, east. How do you respect each other? Because each culture has its own nuances, which need to be respected. So when we do these workshops, it's not just on gender, but it's more on diversity of thought and the culture. Then also to just, while we're talking about this, it's also important how you highlight examples within the organization, because that's how people will take you seriously. I think you were there yesterday when our global CMO was there, and you would have heard that the management team, the top management team of Schneider, we have people from different nationalities itself. We have Chinese, we have American, we have French, we have Indian. So therefore, it's very important when you're moving ahead in this agenda, how is it that you can also show concrete examples, but otherwise it will only remain a thought process and a talk. So it has to be done in conjunction. It has to be a broader agenda, because otherwise people will always ask you, why just gender? So the approach has to be more holistic, more inclusive. So I just thought I'll share with you. Do we close? I think Dhananjay has given me the red light, so I will close. So just wrapping it up, I think we heard lots of good practices which are taking place in the organizations. Are they enough? There can always be a debate, and we did have different opinions, while the audience feels that there needs to be done more. I would say the needle has moved. There's lots more to be done in this space. But I would also like to share a couple of thoughts, and this was while I was going through trying to prepare for this session. I hit across Sheryl Sandberg, and we do know that she's one of the biggest proponents of working women. Very simply, she gave 3 advice, and I'd like to share that with all of you, because it's important that while the organizations are doing a lot, what is it that women themselves need to do? And as we said earlier, we do need to take a step forward and meet the organizations when they're driving this agenda. So these were the things which really stood out in my mind. The first thing she said was, sit at the table. none of us are reaching the corner office if we sit on the side. So if we're aiming to reach at the top, ensure that we take the chances. When opportunities are there, grab them. And I think I heard Monica talking a lot about that. Don't let them go away. If there's a new project, raise your hand. If there's a new assignment, raise your hand. If it's a tough assignment, do raise your hand. The third thing, and I think we had the lady from TCS talking about, was make your partner a real partner in true spirit. So ensure that your household chores are divided well. They also contribute equally to raising children and to the household jobs. I think simple 3 things, but they really stood out in my mind for working women, and I really wanted to share with all of you. In the end, thank you to my panelists for the engaging discussion. I think I really enjoyed chairing this session. My last parting thought, and since I'm passionate on this topic, I think the needle has moved, as we said. There is more work to be done in this space, but I'm hoping that for future generations, there will be a 50-50 ratio at workplace, and in my mind, that truly would be a wonderful world. So with that, I'll bring the session to an end. Thank you so much.
This panel will not realize, personally, I have traveled 15, 16 years in my life during last 90 minutes. Amazing the way you all have touched upon very real life issues. My better half just completed 15 years in one organization itself. And when for the first time, a 4 months kid, we left him, our son, in a crutch in Delhi. With a very brave face, we came out and we started crying. And we used to do this almost for a month, over a month. And all youngsters in those years of our age, all of us used to do like that. We used to come out and we used to stand and cry that do we really need to go to office, how we should do it. And when she just completed on this second 15 years, we were thanking our son and our organization. In fact, Mr. Kamal Singh is here. He knows how they used to counsel us in our previous organization. The organization was very, very supportive. In fact, a lot of worry you used to take from your home, and some relative will come and they'll say, this could have been much better. And then you feel the guilt, oh my God, we are not doing enough. So thank you so much, friends. Very, very, these are real life issues, and the way you have touched upon it, the way you have moderated, the way you all have contributed, a big round of applause for all of you. To do the honors, I would request, we have Dr. with us, Dr. C.N. Narayanan with us. He's Director of Kirloskar Institute of Advanced Studies. So please come to the dais and present mementos on behalf of all of us, please. The last session of this year's program. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Bala, our chapter president from Bangalore, who has just joined us. Thanks, Bala, for joining us here in this very important program. The last session, which talks about inclusion matters. And rightly, Rachna had pointed out yesterday that the full program, when we talk about diversity, we are focusing on gender diversity. We're not focusing on all kinds of diversity which we have in our organizations. Having said that, we wanted to, thanks Adil, thank you very much. Having said that, we wanted to talk about the larger piece of diversity also. And Deloitte, NHRD and Schneider, we agreed that the last session, I'll request all of you to please be seated. The last session we will talk about inclusion matters. And when we say inclusion matters, we have some excellent ideas and suggestions by the committee. Here, this session will be chaired by Ms. Priyanka Sudarshan. She is General Manager, Human Resources, Wipro Technologies. We have an excellent panel with us, Ms. Usha Singh, General Manager, Corporate Planning, NMDC. Ms. Vijaya Deepti, Global Head Insurance Products, TCS. And we have our friend from Enable India, S. Subaya, and Ms. Bindu Venkatesh, Vice President Talent Management, Oracle. So I will request the session chair and panelists to join us on the stage, please. We'll start with Ms. Priyanka Sudarshan, GMHR, Wipro Technologies, the session chair, to join us on the stage. Let me request Ms. Usha Singh, GM Corporate Planning, NMDC, to join us on the stage, please.